So this is ChatLLaMA. ChatLLaMA it's essentially an interface that's inspired by Facebook Messenger, and you can just start asking it questions like, what is quantum physics? And then in the background, it's talking to this trained language model and generating this response. My name is Abu. I'm a software engineer at Baseten. I work on Blueprint.
I'm Aaron. I'm a product designer at Baseten, and I work on I'm on the Blueprint team.
We just saw llama and alpaca, like all of this interesting research come out, and we realized that there wasn't any like engaging or even like easy to use interfaces. You had to go and like use Google Colab, or you try to get through like GPU issues. You had to be an engineer to use it to start with, and even then you needed to know a little bit about how the model worked. Downloading the model wasn't easy. Getting it working was just really difficult. And at the same time, if you read the paper, like the base llama paper, it was clear that it was a really engaging and like relatively powerful model, probably one of the most powerful models that we've had be open source. And so let's just build a really easy way for people to interact with this stuff. We get more people on the open source train of like working with these models if we can show them what state of the art looks like today.
What is interesting about ChatLLaMA too is just how quickly we were able to go from 0 to 1. So it wasn't, it was about a 2.5-day project. And I spent the first day and a half or so just designing in code. So we didn't really spend any time like mocking this up in Figma or anything like that. Kind of went straight into just building it.
I mean, working at Baseten makes it really easy because at least the hard stuff, serving the model, is handled for you. So at least on my end, it was like, let's get a truss, which is essentially a model server around Llama, around Alpaca. Like, let's get that set up and deployed on Baseten. And what that gave us was an API that we could build a front end for.
Yeah, I felt like on the front end, everything was pretty straightforward. We were kind of using these like existing primitives already and just applying them to this new model as a way to like interact and play with it.
But yeah, the challenge is definitely scaling it. I mean, Baseten handled it pretty well, right? Like scaling with the traffic. The model, we didn't have many constraints set on the model. So when people were using it, when people were using ChatLLaMA, we were actually seeing a lot of OOMs. Like the model, as it generates more text, it scales with GPU memory. So it just takes up more and more and more memory. So if it's handling a request, like if I asked it, what is quantum physics, and then it decides to write me an essay, at some point it would OOM. And what we were seeing was that we were getting some with traffic and we were scaling pretty well, but we were noticing that like a good percentage of the instances were OOM because users' requests were taking, the model was writing a lot. And so we had to set some constraints on that. Definitely don't try to host it yourself. It's deceptively easy to like get some of these models working as an API, but I think you need to understand like what your users are, they're going to use it. The ChatLLaMA like chat interface has some constraints on like how the model can write, and that made it a lot easier for us to like actually serve the model by baking those constraints into the server. If we were writing, let's say like a Google Docs replacement, and it was possible for the model to like generate pages and pages and pages of text, that's just a very different backend that you have to build. I think knowing like the requirements of the product up front will help you a lot when it comes to building the logic around the model. You can set constraints, which will make your life a lot easier.
I want to see more open source models like Llama that are competitive to ChatGPT. Like this seems to be the first open source model that is really comparable.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time on Twitter. I think Archive is really good. I like to sometimes, if I like to just go in the AI subsection and just like read the titles and the abstract, and if it seems interesting, click on it. But yeah, honestly, it's a lot of Twitter. Like I think Twitter is there's a lot of great researchers that you can follow, and they'll kind of cue you into it.